Thank you, David, and the rest of the Creative Mornings team. I'm so excited to be here today with you. I've been to a number of Creative Mornings, and I'm so honored and grateful to be able to add my creative story share my story here with you today. As David said, my name is Amanda Crider, and I am an opera singer and also the founder and artistic director of Illuminarts, a concert series here in Miami that combines art and music to tell stories. Now, I have to admit that when David and Malik asked me to speak about honesty today, I was a little bit nervous. And then even more nervous when they said the venue was going to be the World Erotic Art Museum. But I figured, yay! Thank goodness we're all here today. But I thought, what better place to be naked emotionally and to talk about being vulnerable and authentic. And before I share about my story today, I wanted to open the question up to you. If I have any brave souls in the audience who would like to share what holds you back from being honest. What's your fear, if you ever have one, or maybe you're all just honest all the time, with being honest? Anybody? Yes?
Judgment.
Judgment, okay. Shame.
The fear of the unknown.
Fear of the unknown, good. I relate to all of those. I also am afraid of disappointing people sometimes. And I'll talk about a few other things that hold me back in my creative process in just a little bit. But I think honesty is an amazing topic, especially for our times in politics and fake news, and also just try online dating and see what kind of honesty you'll get there. That feels really cathartic to say, honestly. But today I'm going to be talking about honesty as it applies to my creative process. So I thought it's a little ironic for me to be talking about honesty because I've literally made my career out of pretending to be somebody else on stage. But I found this amazing quote by Oscar Wilde that man is least himself when he talks in his own person. Give him a mask and he will tell you the truth. So this really resonates with me because it is 1,000% harder for me to be up here as myself this morning than when I wear any of the many masks that I've worn throughout my career as an opera singer. So I'm much more able to explore my feelings and emotions and express them honestly when I'm not being myself on stage, because truthfully, every character that I play has a little bit of myself or maybe a lot of myself in it. So I thought I'd show you some of the masks that I've gotten to wear over the years. Some of them look a lot like me. This is Carmen. I've gotten to play her twice, but this was from a production I did this past summer. And in Carmen, I get to explore being sexy and seductive, which is what we think of with Carmen, but also she's an extremely confident, self-assured person, but also very manipulative. So to tap into those sides of myself and make it believable to the audience. Also, if you're not familiar with the opera Carmen, this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler alert, but she gets stabbed to death in the end. So it was an interesting place to put myself in, to be in the last fight of my life and think how Carmen would feel in that moment. What I came up with was resolved, strong. She was going to be free to the end, no matter what was going to happen to her. Another character I've played that also looks a lot like me is a character called Alma in the opera adaptation of an Ingmar Bergman film called Persona. Has anyone seen Persona? No. Run, go watch it. It's an amazing film. When I saw the film, I was auditioning to be in the opera, and as soon as I saw it, I thought, I have to have this role. She's an incredibly complex character, and I'll tell you a little bit about the story. She's a nurse who was hired to take care of an actress who has decided to stop speaking. And so she speaks through the entire film. I sang through the entire opera. And I was trying to imagine what it would be like to be in a one-sided conversation for months with someone. Alma goes a little crazy. She falls in love with the actress, becomes completely infatuated with her, but then finds out that the actress is actually doing a character study on her. And she becomes crazy and has a mental break and becomes very violent. And so I've never gone this crazy in my life. But I have to say, going crazy on stage is kind of a liberating thing because it's frowned upon in life to have that kind of mental break and be that violent. But I tapped into a feeling of deep despair and what that would feel like to make it so believable to the audience. I wanted to show you one other picture from that production because in order to incorporate elements of film, we were being filmed live. We were acting down there, and then a movie version of the opera we were performing live was being displayed on those scenes. So I thought it was an awesome production that was at the Los Angeles Opera. I've also gotten to play Cinderella in the Rossini version of that story. And in this story, the overwhelming theme is that goodness triumphs over evil. It's a little more real than the Disney version of the story, I guess. But I love playing Cinderella. I've gotten to do that role twice also, because what she feels at the end of the story is overwhelming gratitude for goodness triumphing over evil. And more and more in my career, but I've always felt this way, that I'm so exceedingly grateful to get to do what I love for a living. So to get up there and sing in front of the audience about how grateful I am, it's pretty moving. I've also gotten to play this funny character called Berta. She is an old maid, and I was 28 when I played that role. So it was fun to work with the director and discover how to make myself look old or act old when I wasn't actually old. And so I distorted my face. It was a really fun role to play. I was in a production in Boston of an opera called Greek, which is a modern-day adaptation of the Oedipus story. So man meets woman, falls in love, marries the woman, then finds out it's actually his mother. And this was an awesome show, and I got to wear some incredible masks in this show. I was a sexy sphinx guarding the gates of hell, and I was a waitress that Oedipus fell in love with, and then later became his wife. And I got to wear this amazing zebra print suit. It's not showing up so well, but it was actually made for me. It was awesome. And then my favorite wig of all time I got to wear as the first character in that show. It was this like crimped red thing. It was amazing. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but oh no, it shows up pretty well. Never before or since have I gotten to wear a naked headless Barbie as a necklace. So, but maybe I should in everyday life. I've gotten to fall in love with many men on stage in many different ways. This is always a little tricky because it's a professional situation, so you have to make sure there are professional boundaries set up. I have been better at that at times than others. Sometimes the drama off stage is just as good as the drama on. But I was in a production of Don Giovanni, or Don Juan, and here he is seducing me. I'm a peasant girl. This was my wedding day, but he had the ability to seduce me anyway. And then another kind of character I play, another mask I've worn that's possibly the furthest away from who I am, comes with a tradition in opera, which some of you may know about, where mezzo-sopranos, which is what I am, sing the roles of teenage boys. And this tradition came about because previous to that, there was another tradition where young boys were castrated so that their voices wouldn't change, and they sang the roles of young boys on stage. Even though they were grown men, they were called castrati. But that fell out of fashion and became illegal. So then mezzo-sopranos took over those roles because we sing in the same range. I hope that all made sense. But anyway, I've gotten to play dudes many times on stage. And this was one of my favorite makeup jobs that I've ever had as a Russian prince. And I thought he even looked pretty good with the wig off, so I took multiple pictures of that. And then these are a few more of the boys that I've played over the years. Carabino in The Marriage of Figaro is a young boy who's just discovering love for the first time. So it was really interesting to get to put myself in those shoes and try to make it an honest and authentic presentation for the audience. All of these masks that I've worn, it's liberating to be inside of them and inhabit them and explore all of these different emotions that I might not be able to express as myself. And so now in the spirit of honesty, something you may have already picked up on is that something I'm not always so willing to admit, seems a little taboo in our generation, but my driving force in life, the thing I love more than anything else, is classical music. I mean, I love it. I feel it in every ounce of my body and being. I know why I am this way. My mother was a musician, and I'm sure she played classical music to me in utero and then had me sitting behind the piano when I was just a baby. When I was 2.5, they put a violin in my hands. Here I am at one of my first public performances with my sister. I think I was like 3.5 here. And I was able to choose my own outfit, including my strawberry shortcake socks, which I thought looked awesome with those sandals. And I also was a ballet dancer, so not only from age 3 to 17. So not only was I playing music, but I was moving to it, and I really feel it in my body. I love music so much. I ended up starting piano lessons when I was 6, and the piano, sitting behind the piano became my safe place. It was the place where I could express all the emotions I wanted to honestly through music. And my parents never had to force me to practice. I would sit there for hours. It just felt like my place. And so I ended up going to Syracuse University to study piano. And I remember being in the basement of that place practicing so many times and just feeling overwhelmed by the music that I was playing and overwhelmed with how much I loved what I was getting to do with my life. I've never had to decide what I was going to do with my life. My passion chose me, so I feel very lucky in that way. But somewhere around my junior year, I developed a pretty intense stage fright, which has crept in throughout my career, but was so intense there. Whenever I walked out on stage, I just wanted to run right off. And I've done a lot of self-exploration about this, and also a ton of therapy. And I know it boils down to the fact that I am a recovering perfectionist and people pleaser. So I thought if I can't go out there on stage and be perfect, then I can't please all the people in the audience. But ultimately, that is not what it's about. But I didn't figure that out until, honestly, just recently. Anyway, since the stage fright was crippling my piano career, I took some voice lessons, and I entered a voice competition my senior year of college. And I played for a bunch of students, and I also sang. One of the girls I played for got first place, and I got second place. And the head of the voice department came up to me and said, "Amanda, why have we never heard you sing before?" So I thought, okay, I'm getting a lot of encouragement here. Maybe I will become an opera singer. And I wanted her to dance. So that's what I did. I moved to New York. I went to graduate school at the Manhattan School of Music, and I loved my 2 years there. It was incredible to be amongst my peers who were striving to be the very best at their craft. I spent 10 years in New York getting my career off the ground, complete with the requisite day job, which I was able to quit about 10 years ago, and I've just been a full-time performer ever since. When I moved to Miami, one of my goals that I've always had I decided to explore, which was to start my own organization, my own concert series. I found this awesome quote by Shakespeare: "No legacy is so rich as honesty." And so I wanted to find a way to bring something to my community that I was passionate about. And as we know, I love classical music. And I also love a specific type of classical music called art song or lieder. And basically what that boils down to is poetry set to music. And it's usually for piano and voice. I like to say it's kind of like the modern, like pop songs. If you think about pop songs, they are lyrics or poetry set to music, sometimes more profound than others. But that's what it is. And they're all about 3 to 5 minutes long. They all tell a little story unto themselves. And they combine two things I love, classical music and poetry. So I was thinking about how to start my own organization, and I was in Washington, D.C. watching an art song recital. So traditionally, the singer and the pianist are up on stage, and they're singing a program of music. Sometimes it's in different languages, so the audience has translations of the poetry. And I'm sitting there, and I love this music so much, and I was bored. And I thought, if I'm bored, and I love this more than anything, how will anybody who hasn't considered this kind of music enjoy it? How can this evolve to be something that people in the 21st century want to listen to? So sitting there in that recital, I let my mind wander, and I thought, well, Miami is a visual art town, and we have incredible visual art spaces like this here today. What if I put the concerts in the museums and galleries? And what if I take away the constraints of a traditional concert? All right. So I thought about that, and I thought, well, that's a great idea. And I'm also going to plan the music that I program around the visual art that's in the space and tell the stories that the artists are trying to tell through their art, through song. But I only had one problem, and that's that I know nothing about visual art, or didn't at the time. And I probably couldn't have even drawn I didn't draw this stick figure. I probably couldn't draw one this good. I didn't know anything about visual art. So I came back to Miami, and I was introduced to some art collectors and some curators who liked the idea of combining art and music and taking the music out of the traditional concert hall. And with their help, Illuminarts was born. And it's been a wonderful thing because I try to make the music as accessible to people in the 21st century as possible by telling stories through the art and the music. I have learned so much about honesty through the performers that I've hired over the years to sing with Illuminarts. This gentleman right here, his name is Jarrell Williams, and the performance that he was singing on there is one that we called The Dandelion Roars, and it was highlighting an exhibition at the Low Art Museum called Dandelion, Re-Articulating Black Male Masculinity. It was a great exhibition. It was awesome. And what it tried to do was break down the stereotypes of Black masculinity and Black stereotypes as they're presented in the media by highlighting the dandy fashion phenomenon. So the performance that we had 3 amazing performers: Jarrell, a man named Kenneth Overton, and a pianist named James Davis Jr. And I remember being in the first rehearsal for this performance, being completely blown away by the braveness and the honesty that these men brought to their music making. The program we developed took the audience on a journey from struggle through letting your light shine, finding your identity, and triumphing. The performance was one of the most touching performances I've ever been to, and I felt grateful and humbled that I got to present it through Illuminarts here in my community. I was just so inspired by these genuinely honest performances that these men gave. Other performances that we've put on at the Bass Museum of Art, we highlighted the work of African artist El Anatsui. His exhibition was called Gravity and Grace and had to do a lot with colonization and his life in Nigeria. Those tapestries on the walls are all made from tiny bottle caps. It's just amazing to see them. They're monumental works, and one of the ways we broke down the constraints of the concert hall with that performance was the exhibit took up the entire top floor of the museum. So we led the audience through the museum. There were no chairs, and we had different musical moments along the path. So it was a great way to experience these enormous works and music at the same time. And the picture here on the bottom is a performer that I love. He's such an open-hearted, honest performer. He came to Miami in January and sang a performance at the Betsy Hotel, another one of our fantastic partners. In April of this year, this picture is from a performance we did at the De La Cruz collection called A Female Force. It was inspired by the work of artist Ana Mendieta. Her art has a lot to do with identity and belonging, and she was a Cuban, she was part of the Peter Pan, I don't know what to call it. Yeah. So she was sent to Iowa when she was 8 years old. So she felt ripped from her homeland, and all of her art is about trying to reconnect with the earth. So we had 7 incredible women as part of this performance. And all of the music that we highlighted in the performance was by women composers. So we titled the performance Female Force. Also, Ana Mendieta, a lot of her art she created on her own as a ritual. So I made the music into kind of a circle, a musical circle, a ritual. So it began and ended the same way. And there was an arc in between. It was staged. I like to incorporate movement into our performances. Just another way to keep people's attention, I guess. But I also think movement is beautiful on stage. So this was an incredible experience. There were a lot of moving parts. I had to balance all of the schedules of the women, the estate of Ana Mendieta, and I couldn't have done it without the incredible team at the De La Cruz collection. And especially the museum director. Her name is Yvette Yanez. She taught me so much about radical honesty. That woman is honest no matter what, no matter what's going to happen, if it's going to be difficult news for the other person to receive. She just has so much integrity and delivers anything honestly, and it taught me so much. It was an intense experience, and I think I slept maybe 2 hours a night that entire week. But after the dress rehearsal, I had a minute by myself in the bathroom, and I thought to myself, this is all worth it. If I get to create art like this, then everything is worth it. I have a Post-it note on my desk that says, what kind of art do you want to make with the time you're given? And this is the kind of art I want to make. Art that connects to other humans, that allows performers to be brave and honest, and that tells stories. Another one of our productions was at the Perez Museum, and this was a performance of a Pulitzer Prize-winning piece called The Little Match Girl Passion by David Lang. It's an incredible story that tells the Hans Christian Andersen tale of a little girl who is out on the street selling matches. She's homeless, and she freezes to death, but there is a lot of hope and redemption in her story. I loved working with Pam. They allowed us to open all of our rehearsals to the public. As a performer, I often find that some of the most honest, raw moments happen when I am in the rehearsal process. That's where I allow myself to be the freest. And it was so special to get to share that entire process with any museum visitors who wanted to come and see it. Just another way that we're trying to break down the bounds of the elitism of classical music. These two pictures on your left are from our most recent production at the Low Art Museum of a performance called Dresden Hymn to Humanity. And then the other two pictures are also from A Female Force. This moment with the ladies hugging, I didn't actually get to witness that. It happened after they walked off stage. And when I was going through the photos that the photographer sent me, I was so touched that these women met 5 days earlier. And the process of putting this piece together resulted in this kind of emotion at the end. And it was so special to me. So what's the takeaway? Honesty can be scary. But when I challenge myself to be open and vulnerable, the response I receive is an open and vulnerable response. It takes courage to be honest, to live from a wholehearted place. And I've learned that from so many different people along my path, and especially the people that have contributed their voices to Illuminarts. I wanted to leave you with one more quote by Mother Teresa. Honesty and transparency make you vulnerable. Be honest and transparent anyway. I think it's one of our human opportunities to connect honestly with other people and be vulnerable and authentic. And I have been given the gift of being able to do that through art and music. And I'm pretty sure I'm the luckiest girl in the world. Thanks.